Just as a reminder, you can visit us at thoughtsexpanded.com. That's thoughtsexpanded.com to sign up for our amazing Patreon exclusives, listen directly, and share our latest episodes with your family and friends. Thanks for listening.
Good evening, and welcome to the 2024 presidential debate post-debate podcast of Thoughts Expanded. I am your moderator, Jeff, and on the left, who knows what it'll be when the video actually comes out, we have the first candidate, Jacob. Jacob, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'll say hi to all the people out there. We are live from the Anti-Constitutional Center in Florida, Alabama, and Indiana.
Yeah, the liminal space between those areas, yes. And on the right, we have the candidate from the right, Wiggy.
Just want everybody to know, this podcast is about moving forward.
Yes.
And not backwards.
Yes.
And we are all pro-fracking.
As it is impossible to move backwards in time.
That's correct. Yeah, so we're here post-debate on the, what?
And we
10th
look
of
like
September?
it too.
Yeah, we
look
do.
tired
It's pretty
because
late.
we're old as fuck.
We are really old, yeah. But we figured, why not take a freebie and record an episode after the debate? That's some free content. That's easy enough. So, yeah, we're going to talk about our thoughts about the debate and how we feel afterwards. I wanted to open things up. First candidate, Jacob. Tell me, what were your pre-debate thoughts? What were the things you wanted to hear? What were your trepidations pre-debate?
Sure. Well, I guess I say that I would be. I was hoping that there would be some surprise when it comes to foreign policy. Unfortunately, it seems like that didn't happen. But that was. I would say that was my hope. I would say, as far as predictions are concerned, obviously it's easy to say this, but I feel like it turned out the way I'd expect in general, which is that, I don't know, not to turn this into just the end of the conversation, but I feel like there was no real winner. I don't know if the newspapers will say there's a winner or what, but they sometimes do. But to me, it just didn't really seem like it was all that worthwhile. And I expected it to be not potentially worth my time. And I would say, apart from getting to discuss it with you guys, that's how it ended out.
Right on. And candidate Wiggy, what were your thoughts before the debate? What did you want to hear?
My thoughts before the debate is I don't want to watch this debate. It seems kind of pointless. They're both terrible candidates. They're both fairly terrible people who have done very terrible things in one way or another. I was surprised by nothing that I heard. And it wound up being was about as disappointing as I thought it was going to be. I will say to Rabb's point, candidate number one, that there was definitely a coordinated effort by both sides to play up their side to what its pinnacle could have been, and like to the ideal of their side.
Sure.
And for Trump, that was to be as angry as possible at how his government was treated during the time that he wasn't in power. And from Kamala's side, to embody who they think the best president of the past 2 centuries have been, which was Obama to them. And she very much seemed like Diet Obama. Even had a message of, even relying around a message of hope as the way forward through this. It's the same rhetoric, it's the same playbook. And I'll leave some more of that for a talking point later. But
Yeah.
So don't make it Jeff your microphone.
Yeah, don't mute me.
Yeah.
Don't mute me. I don't want to go over. So Jeff, what the same question to the moderator? What's the moderator feel?
The moderator wrote, the very first thing he wrote tonight was, I had to be very high to listen to Trump talk. So I agree. Didn't really want to listen to this thing tonight. I probably would have, even if we didn't record this, just because like I care. I don't know why. I just do. But I definitely had some things I wanted to hear tonight. Quite a few of them I heard. A bunch of them I did not. But like I wanted to hear one of them call out Israel. But I mean, you know, what are you going to do? I mean, you almost had Harris kind of say something negative at the beginning of her conversation about that, but we'll get to it. I really wanted to hear a fact check about the post-birth abortion thing. And I wanted to hear, about healthcare reform. I wanted to hear about homes.
I have to interrupt you here real quick, because I think it's very important to mention that before the debate, Jeff made a call on Discord about something that he wanted to happen, and it did happen. So explain that a little bit to us real quick.
I think maybe this should be the first merch item that we offer.
Yeah, I was actually thinking that as well.
Yeah,
we're gonna do that.
Just a shirt that says, I watched President Trump lie about post-birth abortion on Disney Plus. And we can just toss the Thoughts Expanded logo on the back and we're good to go.
Are we allowed to say Disney Plus?
I don't know. We'll research that.
We'll add what are those?
We'll spell Disney with a dollar sign.
We'll do eclipses, and then a plus symbol, and then another eclipse symbol.
What's that eclipse symbol? You mean an ellipsis?
Maybe it's ellipses,
like the 3 dots.
No, like the that symbol.
Parentheses.
Like the curved line, those
parentheses.
No, not
quotes.
The double ones.
Quotes.
Not quotes. Like
that's quotes. Parentheses.
No. It is very late here. If it's parentheses, let me look this up real quick. I might be talking about parentheses. What is that called?
What Jeff's holding up?
Hold on. Yes.
That's parentheses.
Okay. Parentheses, my bad.
Okay, so that's parentheses. Yes, I'm talking about parentheses. We'll put it in parentheses.
We'll figure out some way to make it legal enough to get like $1 per shirt off of it and finally turn a profit in this business. So,
and for any audio listeners out there who don't know what parentheses look like, you can look at a keyboard. It's right next to the 9 and the 0 key.
Yeah, if you hold shift and hit 9 or 0, you get the parentheses. Yeah. For our Gen A or whatever the newest generation is out there listening to us. Yeah.
Watch out for Wiggy's next rant on the Patreon about how he's not supported when he doesn't know what something's called.
Well, I mean, we supported you by helping you figure it out.
I guess.
Yeah, that's support.
Yes.
Helping you learn is support. Just like the history episodes are helping me. Yeah,
that's very true.
That's important.
So back to it.
Yeah, let's get back to it. Okay, so The debate starts, and my first thought was that the male host looks like an insect alien. Agree or disagree? Jacob, I need a yes or no from you, and obviously you're going to give me a very long answer where you don't say yes or no.
Well, I think that lots of people look like lots of different things. And I certainly do not know a lot of people who look like an insect alien.
Yeah.
But
you look like a praying mantis a bit. Kind of like a Taylor Swift looking motherfucker, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I would say news anchors probably look more like insect aliens than your average person.
True. They sound like it too.
So if this one looked like an insect alien, that's for you, the American citizen, to decide.
Valid. So the first topic was the economy, and it opened up on.
I have something to say about this guy real quick.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yes, candidate number 2, Wiggy.
You just skim right through me.
Former President Wiggy. How can I help you?
Okay.
Yeah, we have to
move on to the future. Yeah. So one thing was abundantly clear, and that was that ABC wanted to make sure that he's the face of their entire company from now on. Not only did they make sure that, and I'm gonna say it, he's a relatively handsome man. He just is. He's got the features. He's got what he needs to be a handsome man. And they also did a commercial. The first commercial that they did had him walking through a like war zone with like army gear on, making him look kind of rugged, showing him shaking hands with children in third world countries, like just plotting him up. So I thought that was interesting to note that ABC was flexing a little bit on the rest of the news networks. Not that it matters; they're all going bankrupt. But
yeah. I will say, I guess before we really get into the debate itself, I think there was a pretty clear leaning by the question at the moderators, by ABC in general. Not that I minded it, because I do think it was in the Democratic favor, but it and you know, I guess it could just be that they were actually calling out Trump on some of his bullshit, unlike many other channels. That's probably the only reason I'm saying that. It's like they didn't even really side with anyone. They're just like, hold on a second, that's not true, you know, which is nice to hear. But what do you think about that?
I think it was okay for them to fact check him on things. But they also led the questions in such a way that was very purposeful to get specific reactions from him. And so, and they also repeated questions that had been asked to him in the past, knowing that he was going to give the same answer that he gave before. And so that I don't like, just based on principle, not because it's him, I could care less, but just based on principle, it did feel a little skewed. And that's what happens when this kind of stuff is controlled by mainstream media.
I can't tell whether it's skewed or not, but one point about that in particular is just that, I mean, they asked Kamala, literally, like, not exactly in these words, but like, did you flip-flop on all these issues? Like, they brought up every single issue that they thought she had changed her mind on. And they forced her to, I mean, they basically mentioned the fact that she had a different opinion in the past and what her current opinion was stated to be. So, I mean, I'm not trying to say, like, it was necessarily a totally fair set of questions or, like, completely balanced or whatever, but just, like, they certainly did ask questions in a way that wasn't, like, that was supposed to make either side give a certain answer, you know what I mean?
In a way. Yeah, reflecting on it now, I really do think that it may just have been me going like, oh man, they're actually like calling him out on some of his bullshit. But I mean, they did for her too, you're right. Although, we'll get to it. I do have comments about her flip-flop rebuttal, but let's get back to the very beginning. Let's try to go through some of the topics here. They started with the economy. I didn't get a whole lot of notes from Harris in this first part because I was really just instantly noticing the like optimism trope. Trope might not be the right word, but like
No,
just
that's the correct word for it.
yeah, I mean, just the thread of optimism through everything she was saying, like talking about dreams and opportunity and, instantly going to, talking about lowering housing costs and the family tax credit being bumped up to $6,000. I want to ask you about that, Wiggy, about like, how do you think that would affect you? Like that extra money? It's an extra like $1,500 a year or something. Like, do you think that'll have a real effect or
No.
no?
I mean, you're also talking about me in particular, right?
Sure.
Me in particular, no. Even me in particular, 5 years ago, no. Very, very young people or single parents that have lots of children that are very young, yeah, could make a sizable difference. Yeah, that's what I think about that. But I mean, for most people, no. I mean, maybe yes, just because the economy's so fucking bad that yeah, maybe it makes a difference for for more people.
Sure. I mean, just on like positivity in general, I think that it is a real problem that when you can't convey a positive message at all. Like I think both parties have an issue with that to some degree. And I think like I guess Trump has a positive vision of some kind. He certainly does. I don't know. I guess they do both say things for sure. I don't know. I mean, like hers sounds slightly more realistic to me. And just in the terms of like, I can picture in my head how it would be done, but I don't know that it's any more realistic in the sense that I like actually trust it. Like I think that's where it kind of breaks down for me. It's just that I feel like what like the proven track record of both parties, like what they've done economically is essentially the same, except for that like occasionally it goes to Republican, like they do tax cuts. Like the Democrats don't do that, I guess, like directly do huge tax cuts for huge companies. And then Republicans don't do like social spending, but like we go back and forth on purpose because it's required to do both just over, like not all at the same time, I guess, right? Like it's required to have both pieces doing both things. And, I don't know that necessarily means we're going straight back to Trump after this so that he can do tax cuts for the wealthy, but I just, I feel like they have a track record of doing a very different thing than what they say for sure.
Sure.
And I feel like they're very similar. I feel like the only ways they actually differ are ways that almost like complement each other. Like the other side wants that other thing to happen. They just don't want to be the ones to do it.
So it's kind of like there's like for every policy, there is a season turn kind of thing. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah. Well, and just on the economy in general, both of their plans. So one thing that the Democrats do well and the one things that the Democrats do poorly. Okay. One thing that they do really well is come up with ideas that make people excited about them without telling them about the negative side effects that come with choosing that option. And so if we start talking about the specifically the child tax credit, and we start talking about the what was the other thing? Oh, the $25,000 for first time homeowner down payments, right?
Yeah.
Don't we have that now?
So
I think it's 10,000 now.
Oh,
we
okay.
did. It's expired. It's not a thing anymore.
I see.
But what they don't tell you is that the government spending all that extra money leads to more inflation. Because we print that money. That's how that works. Just the same way that how we're sending all this money over to help fight all the other wars that we're doing is coming from money printing. It's not coming from taxes. The government doesn't run off of taxes. It doesn't collect enough taxes to run off of what it spends in a year. We run on deficit. And so it sounds really good. I like the sound of it. I'd love $25,000 to put down towards the house. I might actually be able to buy it. If that doesn't cause a change in the market and cause the house's prices to skyrocket in response to it. But, like those things sound really good, but they have negatives that come along with them if they don't have a plan to pay for them, right? And there's been no talk about what that plan would be to pay for. It's just what we're going to do. One thing that Democrats do really poorly is naming legislation. They're really bad at naming legislation. It always says exactly what they think it's going to do, right? Like the Affordable Care Act. Okay, like this is a way that we're going to try to pass medical, right? Like this is what we're talking about, right? Whereas the Republicans, they named that shit the Freedom Fighter 2000 I Love Jesus bill. And people would be like, yeah, fuck yeah, I'm all for that. Without knowing
Jesus.
without knowing what the bill is, right? Or knowing anything about it. Like that's what the bill's called. That's what's going to pass, right? Sure. And so just to point out, like both of their economic policies are terrible. Both of them are. There's not one of those. If there was a combination of both of them, that would be a good place to be.
Well, like, I mean, I think
there has to be a middle ground. That's what's common about both of them is they're bad.
I mean, what I'm saying is the elements that are common to both are bad, and I feel, to me, I think the majority of what it is in common. I think that if we were really looking to solve the economy, we would need to go in the complete opposite direction of both of them, and like do some stuff like the types of things we talked about on the FDR episode, right? Like start a national jobs program. I mean, that's printing money too, but you're doing it to direct the resources in society more towards improving people's lives, like hiring people to build infrastructure. That puts money directly in people's pockets, the money that you print, right? And also everybody who's not receiving that money is receiving the benefits of the infrastructure that's built.
For sure.
Well, and the other thing that nobody ever brings it up because they're politicians and they're running for a job, right? Like this is a job interview. That's what this is.
Sure.
So no politician is ever going to talk about this, especially right now. But do you know how to fix inflation? You create a recession. A recession is what lowers prices. Their goal, like the Fed's goal so far, which has been to lower inflation down to a 3% average or whatever it is that they've been talking about, does not fix the problem of prices being too high. It just means it slows down the rate at which inflation grows. Because they want to grow the economy more. Well, our economy's already fucking gigantic. And it's part of the problem. But the problem with a recession is it costs jobs in the short term. And nobody wants anybody to be without a job, right? I don't want anybody
to be without a job. We could certainly do with less jobs. They would just need to be better jobs, right?
Or better, right.
Yeah.
That's also a solution. But in order to actually drop prices, which neither of them talked about, is that we actually need to force a recession. And none of them are going to talk about it. It's just something that I wanted to point out. It's fact. Like that's how the monetary supply works. So,
Well, that kind of
anyway.
leads into where Trump took over at that point, and like you instantly see the stark difference between the two of them here. In that, Kamala's talking about these things that that they want to bring forward, these forward-thinking ideas, and Trump instantly goes to talking about, his past tariffs and blaming, inflation on, Biden and Harris and, the last 4 years of immigration. Like, he's instantly talking about the past. And that's just a thread throughout the whole thing. Like, he does not talk about any of his plans for the future. And at one point in time, really late in the debate, he's like directly asked by one of the moderators, what is your plan for, I think it was getting out of or not Afghanistan, but his plan for something. He said, I have a concept of a plan. And I feel like that
was
is
about Obamacare, I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah, it was. You're right. That's about the Affordable Care Act. Yeah. That I have a concept of a plan. And I feel like that is Trump incarnate right there. Like, just a vague concept of what needs to be done or what they think needs to be done, but never like a concrete plan. Like, at no point in time during this debate did he give a concrete answer to a question about what will you do about X, Y, or Z.
Well, he did. He definitely did. But I'm actually going to go out on a limb and say neither did she. Neither of them got into the details of any of their plans.
No.
Like that just didn't happen. Like, and so I expected that out of both of them. Her, whatever policy she has and anything that she's spitting out is very new. Is very like, let's take the top talking points right now, come up with something that sounds good to most American people and say it. And Trump's was, let me get back in the door and let me see what I can do.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Trump basically would say over and over again, like, I am respected, like that. I mean, his plan is basically to be himself.
Right. Yeah.
So,
which he made super clear in the conversation about, the Ukraine situation and Israel and Palestine. Like,
right.
That his whole plan is just to be, I'm me and people listen to me. Therefore, it's going to all work out.
Yeah.
And I'm like looking through my notes. I took like 9 pages of notes. And I mean, for the most part, yeah, you're right, Wiggy. She didn't say a whole lot about her plans. She did give more concrete answers on the abortion stuff.
Well, she did.
She did,
but
she plainly state the 2-state solution, support, and they gave some answers for that. Whereas, again, all Trump would say was, "Oh, I'll just pick up the phone and it'll end."
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, one thing to be said is that no politician ever from now on is ever allowed to say the word solution, even if it is something like 2-state solution.
Yeah.
When you're talking about, especially when you're talking about Jews at all, like, you just can't say the word solution. It's not okay. It doesn't hit well. There. It does not hit well.
Noted. Go ahead, Jacob.
I'm trying to remember what I was going to say. Dang it, I keep losing it. I lost it, it came back to me, and I lost it, and it came back to me. Now it's gone again.
Banana hammock.
Oh, yeah.
What was the topic we were just talking about?
Israel.
I don't know, Israel, I guess.
No.
Yeah.
The one before that.
Economy.
You have to edit this one. Just move forward.
No, I'm not going to.
Not backwards.
It's okay. People get.
Yeah, this isn't getting edited.
I'm in my no editing era. Yeah. Let's talk about the abortion thing, because I was just so happy that finally somebody called him out on the 9-month and post-term abortion thing. Like, what a ridiculous thing for him to have been saying for the last, like, 8 months. And for no one on stage to just be like, hold on, nobody's killing babies after they're born just because parents don't want their kids. Like, what is going on here?
I don't know any history behind that. Like I haven't watched a lot of stuff. So this is the first I've heard of him saying it.
He said it in the last debate.
I didn't watch the last debate either.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah. I mean, I don't know. That's just one of his like weird talking points for a while now. That like this idea that they're after the baby is born, they're just like, nah, I don't want that one. Toss it.
Yeah.
And that for some reason, Walls specifically supports this idea. Like that's another like, it's a weird thing.
Yeah, I definitely don't think that's a thing.
No, it's not a thing.
I also kind of wish Kamala would have responded to the part about like Trump specifically said 6, 7, 8, 9 months.
Yeah.
And I think that's the place where most people start getting really finicky about it.
Yeah.
Because to quote Rogan, it's a very human issue. It's a very like moral sentiment type of issue that as a species only we have to deal with. Like like some animals just fucking kill their children when they're born.
Sure.
Like that's a thing that happens. Like
animals actually do post-mortem abortions. I mean, that's a fairly common thing.
Yeah, they really do. And mammals at that.
Well, and also there's plenty of mammals out there that aren't fully formed when they come out of the womb. I mean, I don't know that humans really are either. I mean, you can really consider not that I'm in favor of post-abortion by any means, but I certainly think that humans are not fully formed when they come out of the womb either. You know, there's a number of weeks where the baby's skull is soft and those kind of things, right?
I mean, arguably humans are like some of the most like impotent at birth. Yeah, I mean, like a deer will pop out and be walking in like minutes.
Sure. Giraffes pop out and just start walking.
Yeah,
like,
right. They land on their feet. They're like, I'm never gonna sit to the ground.
Yeah.
I remember what I was gonna say earlier, which is that I'm surprised that Trump wants to call back so much to his own presidency. Like, yeah, that's bizarre to me. It's not like I guess ideologically, somewhat, I think the Trump presidency was bad. I don't know that it was any worse than this one. Like I think a lot of the same policies have continued into this one. Like at least the bad policies. And it's like, I think really this is going to come down to whether or not people remember Trump and think that was bad, or if they remember what's going on right now and think this is bad, right? Like, I think it's that's going to be the main thing. Like, I don't know that any positive vision is going to work as far as what they're articulating, at least.
Yeah. Well, in his closing arguments was entirely just, why hasn't she done it yet?
Right.
As like a vice president with no power, why hasn't she done it yet? And like I wrote a note under that. I was like, why didn't you do anything? You were like literally the president. You know? Like,
sure.
You know,
going back to to abortion in general, I think I think the reason that she doesn't want to say she's against like 9-month abortion or whatever is just because like there are cases where, you know, like you only find out that it's going to kill the mother days before the baby's born. I mean, that can happen. Obviously, they try to detect those issues as soon as possible. But, I mean, there's plenty of people who probably don't show up for their single appointment until the baby's about to be born, right? Because they can't afford health care.
There's also some women that don't find out they're pregnant until they're having a baby.
Yeah, exactly. They go into the hospital,
which is wild.
Yeah.
But I also don't walk in that shoe, and I also don't, you know, I'm just gonna say that I don't walk in those shoes.
Yeah,
So-
you would like to say right here, right now, he has never been a woman, and he will not understand.
Yeah, I'll never be a woman, so I can't say. But I still think it's kind of wild. But I've never been there, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't know. I can't
Sure.
say.
I mean, so I guess what I'm trying to say is I think the only reason she won't come out against that stuff is just because, like, I mean, that it's really more about the circumstances of the pregnancy than when you do it. And I mean, I don't know that I would be willing to support, like, I guess you kind of, if at that point you kind of just have to drill into the details of, like, okay, well, it's not okay at 8 months if it's literally just them deciding to do it on a whim or something, right?
Right, and that's exactly what the Republicans don't want to do, is dig into those details. Like, they want to just be these blanket statements and not have to think about those scenarios.
Sure.
And
And in reality, maybe the legislation is going to say that one way or the other. I honestly don't know what, when Roe versus Wade was law, like, I don't think that it said what month you were allowed to abort at.
No, I
way or
don't
the
think
other.
so either. Yeah, I think there were other rulings that, like, over time built upon it to
Mhm.
maybe dip into that, but also maybe not. Like, maybe it's just the case that, like, it's a nebulous thing within the law.
There were other. That's the whole thing. So Roe v. Wade was the foundation in which a lot of other court rulings were based on. So what happened was, when they got rid of Roe versus Wade, it immediately reversed all of the other rulings that were based on that initial ruling. So all of the progress that had, I say progress with quotes, all the progress that had been made on that specific issue were all rolled back to nothing. And so it wasn't just, like, that's why Roe v. Wade is such a big deal. It's because it's the linchpin. It's not necessarily the one thing that covered all solutions. It was just, it's the linchpin for it.
Yeah, I guess I'm just saying, like, I think the status quo was fine. I mean, that's kind of just my opinion on it. Like, obviously, I don't believe personally that Democrats want to go back. I think that they are plenty happy to fundraise on the current situation, for sure.
Right.
And I think that, like, from a perspective of what they actually want, they probably do want, like, they're fine if it's up to the states to decide, because, like, they can fly people to other places. Like, they can, you, like, if you have money, you can get an abortion anyways, even if you live in a state where it's illegal.
The thing about this, and like, so if you take a step back and you say, okay, what does this do? Well, what does allowing the states to make their own decisions do, right? What it does is make sure that red people want to live in red states and blue people want to live in blue states. That's what this does. So what you have is movement of people that are blue in red states to blue states, and vice versa. So now we have whole states that are just one or the other. And that's a divided country. Because there has to be a mix all over the place in order for us to get this balance that we've had for such a long time. You have to have, like, yes, there's some states that lean more towards one side than the other side, but they at least have pockets of people who think differently than they do in their local area. And that's important when you're talking about things like being able to work together and listen to the other side and be understanding and putting yourself in somebody else's shoes and all those other types of things. It's really important. So we have a big problem if this doesn't get fixed at the federal level, because people will move over abortion. They will. And I know some that I have. Like, I actually know people that have moved from a red state into a very, very blue state just so that they wouldn't have to worry about it, just in case something happened and they wanted the option.
Sure.
So it's a problem.
So are you basically saying that it should be decided at the federal level one way or the other, like without giving a answer on which one you would support?
I think what I think should happen, and this is my solution to just about every problem that we have, and I said just about, is it needs to be a countrywide popular vote.
Sure. Yeah.
That's what needs to happen.
Right.
That's the fair way to solve this problem. Solve it.
Like, yeah. I mean, at that point, obviously, we would end up in the situation of Roe versus Wade or more pro-choice than that. I mean, it is obvious. The numbers, even like in Kansas, right? They vote down all of their, like, if it's ever put up to a popular vote, even in a very red state, it's always upheld. So it's like, I agree with you fully. A popular vote would be a nice way to put it to bed. But, you know, if we start doing stuff like that, then maybe they'll start letting us popular vote about other issues, and they can't have that.
Yep, that's why none of this matters. Let's go back to the beginning.
I feel like, to quote the moderators, we have to move on.
We have to move on. That's right. Please. Candidate 2, we must move on, please. I want to talk about the flip-flops again, because she said in her rebut to the flip-flop question that she would answer every single one of those points that she brought up, and then she proceeded to talk about fracking and not actually answer the question and not bring up any of the other points. Which I thought was so annoying, because like, I do want answers to that. Yeah, but like, I feel like there are some very easy answers to give to this that people will understand, such as, I got in office, I learned more, I got more information, and my opinion changed. You know, I got the facts and my opinion on it changed. You know, I feel like that's okay. But I feel like by not answering the question, you're explicitly saying that's not what happened. You know, it sounds like you're fairly clearly saying, I got paid to believe what I believe right now.
Sure.
You know, and that just feels so gross. And like, cause like, I do want to like Harris, I do want to like Walz, but when I hear them like avoid those questions, it really sounds like they've been bought out, and I'm sure they have been. I just want that, like, it's really fucking with my suspension of disbelief here, you know? And that was a little, a little breaking moment for me there. And then like, it really hurt, in my opinion, that Trump immediately called her out on that, because I felt like that just looked good on him. But milliseconds after calling him out on that, he went straight into the Kamala Harris wants trans operations for illegal aliens in prisons. And that just completely wiped out everything that had just happened for me. I was like, I don't care about flip-flops anymore. What is this? What is this?
Under my administration, we will force fit the Venezuelans. We will force fem them all. We'll have the best fem boys.
Like,
You'll never believe the cat ears people.
Oh my God, that's great. I just don't know where that came from or why it had to happen. That statement.
He had some things that he knew he wanted to say, and he definitely had to make sure that he said them. And every time that happened, she'd look over at him like, what the fuck are you talking about right now? And against, see, and this is something that I definitely wanted to talk about, and what brought me into this, which is I counted the amount of times. So if you don't believe what I'm about to say, go back and watch it again. Okay?
Or
Go
don't.
back, watch it again, and pay attention to every time that she talks. Okay? She has the cadence. She has the tone of President Barack Obama. Her speech coaches have made sure, have drilled into her over the past couple months that this is what success sounds like. And this is what a president sounds like. Because people say, regardless of what Obama actually did in office, he seemed and sounded like the president you wanted to have.
Sure.
And
That
so,
is true.
and so the DNC made damn sure that that's how she sounded. And so, the reason why I say that is because I counted 4 different times where it was very clear that that's exactly what was happening.
Like, that's not just an Obama thing, though. Like, that's a Democratic politician thing going back for a long time. Is that, these very well-spoken, charming people, like...
Right, but it's not just it's just not the charm. Like, the people have the charm. If you ask me, I don't think she actually has the charm.
Oh, no, I agree with that.
I think
don't
she's
very
been,
charming at all.
I think
Yeah.
she was taught just to
Yeah.
do the thing in the
Sure.
moment.
She certainly was using Obama's cadence, and I mean, I think that's not unique to her, really. I mean,
Yeah.
like Pete Buttigieg did the exact same thing. I mean, obviously
Uh-huh.
it didn't work
Yep.
for him.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know that it's necessarily working for her either. I would
No,
guess-
I think it is. I think it is, but what it's doing instead of working the way that they intended to work, what's happening is it's solidifying her as to Jeff's point, the I'm bought and paid for candidate that works for the system. That's what it's doing. Whereas Trump, hate him, like him, whatever your opinion is of him, is still just saying what he wants to say in the way that he thinks it should be said. And so there's still that fight that people have in their minds of big government versus the outsider. He kept that alive, even though he didn't do well.
Sure.
It's still very obvious that nobody wants him in power. And there's an appeal to that for some people.
Right. Yeah. I mean, whenever you like watch interviews of like Trump stands, like that is what's drawing them in, like, really clearly. Like, oh, he just talks like whatever. He doesn't sound like one of them fancy pants motherfuckers.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I get that. I get it. Like, if somebody is talking in a way that makes you feel inferior, I mean, that's a mirror that you really should deal with at some point. But if you're not willing to do that shadow work or whatever, then I get not wanting to, vote for somebody who makes you feel that way. But, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think, like, I guess it's just really comes down to what I keep saying is that, do people believe that Trump will do it or not? Like, if I believed that he was going to immediately pull us out of the war with Ukraine, even if it was just by surrendering, like, I probably would vote for him, but I just don't believe that's what's going to happen. I mean, maybe it is. Who knows? But we'll have to wait and find out, I suppose. But, like, I feel like he governed in the office the same as any other Republican would, maybe just less competently, potentially. I suppose maybe you could say, like, less competent is good if no matter what the politicians are going to be doing evil. But I really don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm one of those people who probably who believes at least somewhat that, like, at least in the past, Obama did, like, certainly before he took office, I think he did truly believe some of the things he was saying.
Oh, he 100% did before he took office.
Sure. I mean, and Kamala Harris has been inside, so, like, she has to know a little bit better about whether those things can actually be done. Like,
Which makes it even more...
understand a little bit more if it's fake.
which makes it even more disingenuous,
Right.
in my opinion, because she knows better. That system, that power system, and we've talked about it to death. That system is just too powerful.
Right. Well, it's
Like-
more disingenuous than Obama, but like Trump's been there too. He also
Yeah,
knows
right.
that he can't change things.
I don't feel
Some
like
degree.
Trump is like very afraid. Like, I think he gives off the disingenuous vibes on purpose. Like, I don't think he's trying to hide his disingenuousness.
Sure.
He's take all of me.
So I almost
take-
give him some points for that, you know. But I mean, he still does
he
lie
puts the evil out in
blatantly.
front, so he doesn't have to hide it as much, right? I mean, that's the
Right,
thing.
right.
Like, that's the whole Republican mission statement lately, is basically we actually are evil, and that's a good thing, and we'll just do it to the people that you hate. But that's actually not true, you know. Where they're going to do it to everybody, just like the Democrats are. I mean, and I think unfortunately the Democrats are getting more and more to the point where it's like we'll do the evil things to the people you hate too. Like that's all they're promising at the end of the day. I mean, she certainly, you know, is promising more. But at least in what she says, for sure.
It's the lesser of two evils, like what we've been dealing with for forever.
Right.
It's do we stick with what we know is going to happen? We know what happens if there's a Kamala presidency. We know exactly what's going to happen. Nothing changes from what's currently happening, right? Nothing changes.
For the most part, yeah.
For the most part, nothing changes, right?
Yeah.
If Trump gets into office, we have no fucking idea what's going to happen.
That's very true.
So it's you know, which do you want at the moment? Do you want the stability even if the stability's bad, or would you rather have fucking chaos and hope it all shakes out the way that we want it to shake out? Like,
Sure.
both are terrible. So you said you were going to call me out on something, Jeff. I said something in the chat.
Yeah, I just wanted to discuss it, like the Ukraine thing. Like,
Yeah.
like I don't like you thought it was kind of odd or inappropriate for them to be asking point blank, do you think Ukraine should win this war? I didn't think that it was that controversial. So I want to hear you explain why you think it's controversial, and I'll say why I think.
Yeah. So
It's
so
not.
he asked the question to Trump, and this is where I started to see a little bit of the slant. Is because that question is problematic in a couple of different ways. But it depends on what you know and what you're aware of as to whether or not that question's controversial, right? So we have to talk about the beginning of the war, right? So everybody knows what happened at the point of Putin just saying he was going to do a military exercise, just like he did with, what was it, Georgia?
Crimea.
In Crimea. And then just rushing his ass in there and starting to attack them for what seemed like no apparent reason, right? There actually were lots of reasons why he did it. I'm not saying he was right to do it. I'm not endorsing that side. I'm not doing any of those things. But what I'm saying is there were reasons as to why he did that. One is because we said we had an agreement with him that said that, one, we won't move weapons any closer to your border than where we have them currently. And we will not let Ukraine join NATO. Well, guess what we did? Continued to move weapons closer to the border, and then we helped overthrow the old Ukrainian government to install, I guess, what's a democratic government over there, even though it's still corrupt too. Like the corruption of the Ukrainian government is famous, and it was talked about in the New York Times about how corrupt the Ukrainian government was. But anytime it's brought up now, it's dismissed as like that's false. Like that, like nobody ever said that. Well, it was printed in the New York Times that everybody thought that the fucking Ukraine government was corrupt. So did he have reasons for doing it? Yes, he had reasons for doing it. Do I agree with those reasons? No, I don't think he should have done it. But it's not as simple as whether or not we think Ukraine should win the war. It's why the fuck did we force his hand to a point where he felt like he needed to do that in the first place? Because we have to take responsibility for the things that we do, which is something that we don't do. We start fucking wars in the Middle East. We do all this other kinds of shit and never take responsibility for any of it. And so that's the same story playing all over again in there. Do I think the Ukrainian people deserve to go through all the hardship and the war and everything else? No, I don't. I don't think that this war should have ever happened. But is the question simple as, do you think Ukraine should win the war? That's a loaded question if you know the history.
So I still don't think it's a loaded question. Like, for me, like, I just don't think that a nation should be able to win and take over another nation.
No, I don't, but no, I don't think, but I also don't think Russia should win. I think we should force Russia's hand to put it back to where it was in the first damn place. And
would that be a win for Ukraine, though?
No.
Well,
that's not winning for Ukraine?
I think
because that's not, because that's, but, well, the only solution that would work would not be giving Crimea back to Ukraine.
Oh, sure. You're saying
which is what they want.
2022 status quo.
Pre-invasion status quo.
Sure. Okay. Well, I mean, I think that I was kind of thinking that, honestly, like, any question should fly, whatever. But also, like, I think I'm starting to kind of go on the side of a loaded question, because it does imply that it's possible for Ukraine to win, whatever that means. I mean, it doesn't make sure winning means for sure, right? Because we obviously have different ideas about it. But also, it implies that it's possible and that the U.S. could choose.
Yeah.
Like, just staying in the war doesn't mean we're going to win. So,
yeah,
like, I think that it's like, I think, honestly, my opinion on the Ukraine war is mostly just that, like, strategically, it was a mistake to not try to peace out when Ukraine was winning. Like, I think that they legitimately had the chance to do that, and they chose not to, and that was a huge mistake.
You mean by pushing into Russian territory, or?
I mean, Ukraine wasn't pushing into Russian territory, but they were doing a hell of a lot job better defending than they are right now.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, at what point do you think that turned? Like, when do you think it should have
6 to 8 months into the war? Like, after a year to year and a half, I think it really turned around for Russia. Not that Russia's necessarily winning, but that they're slowly advancing territorially, and that they are, they have the manpower advantage at the end of the day. I mean, I really don't know. I mean, I guess, should you, like, would I support, like, the U.S. sending their troops in just so that Ukraine could win? Like, that, I certainly wouldn't think I would support that. And saying at all costs that they should win, like, that's, I mean, obviously, I'm not saying that's necessarily what Kamala Harris said out loud, but that is kind of what the question, do you think Ukraine
I don't know,
implies?
I almost think at the very closer there, she did say it out loud when she was she said, she started talking about our lethal fighting force and, like, really playing that up for a second. Like, I do feel like that's what she was saying pretty explicitly.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm not for that. I'm also not for them spending as much money as they're fucking spending on it after causing the problem in the first damn place and raising inflation even worse. Like, where the fuck do people think this money's coming from? Like, all this money that we're sending to Israel, all this money that we're sending to Ukraine is just making inflation worse. And people are just like, yeah, let's go. Guys, we created these fucking problems. It's our fault. Like, just because you haven't been explained that in no uncertain terms by mass media doesn't mean that that's not what the actual case is. Like, we caused these fucking problems, and now we're paying for it to continue the fucking problems. Like, there's a way to solve this shit. And then it's us going, And to be perfectly honest, Trump's not wrong when he says that he needs to step the fuck up. Like, this is the Russia-Ukraine problem is a European problem. NATO is a European Union with us in it.
Sure.
Like, they need to step the fuck up and deal with the problem that's closest to them. And they're not doing it for whatever the fuck reasons. But he's not wrong there. They need to handle that shit. And we just need to get the fuck out of the Middle East. There's no reason for us to be there in any way, shape, or form. And if we say it's because of oil, like, they're not wrong. We have the fucking oil here. We do. Like, and they can't tell you any different. Like, well, the cat's out of the bag that we have the oil now.
Sure.
Like,
I mean, I think that the reason that both parties unabashedly support Israel is ultimately comes down to, I mean, whether this is what Trump and Harris know and believe is another question, but I think ultimately at the party level, what it comes down to is the fact that they want to have a client state so close to Egypt and the Suez Canal. Like, they effectively want to control Egypt without directly controlling Egypt, because the last time that someone tried to directly control Egypt, that didn't really work. So it's better to have somebody else there. And it, and that the fact that, like, they can play on Jewish identity and all that stuff to do that is an advantage to using this strategy versus trying to just, like, directly administer Egypt. And
the other reason why we can't control Egypt is because Iran and fucking Syria. Like, sure. Like, that's why. Like, otherwise, I'm pretty sure we would have had multiple coups in Egypt, like we did everywhere the fuck else.
Well, I think the current Egyptian administration is pretty pro-U.S. already, but also, like, I think that it's better. Like, they're not. They're an independent state from the U.S. at least, right? Like, Israel is effectively a colony, and so, like, that is what is preferred, is to hang on to that, to keep the Suez Canal operational and in the hands of favorable, like, world trade type of deals, right? Like, they want to keep that trade flowing from India and the Middle East, right? The oil in the Middle East flowing back towards Europe and the U.S. And that's super important. And
it's all controlled by the lizard people and the frogs are gay.
I mean, yeah, I guess when you put it that way, like, sure, but, like, that is kind of what I'm sounding like to some degree. But I mean, I really do think that is the geopolitical reason for it. And I think that's the reason that neither party is willing to, like, come out against it, is because they know that it would be bad economically for the U.S. to lose that.
Yeah.
Whether it's worth the price is another question, right? I mean, that's
colonialism.
Yeah.
In 2024.
Right. I don't remember what I was responding to when I was talking about that. I'm starting to get very tired.
Yeah, we can wrap this up. Let me see if I have any final notes here.
I did think it was interesting that both of them were, like, super anti-China right at the beginning. They didn't talk about that too much, which is surprising. Mm-hmm. They definitely, neither of them talked about, like, the pivot to Asia as even an option. People stopped talking about that entirely. It seems like maybe they have, just because it didn't work, right? Like, how do we get a pivot to Asia when you got the U.S.-Ukraine war or the Ukraine war and also the, Palestinian, whatever, calling it a war. It's a very one-sided war, but I guess a war.
I mean, I haven't heard it talked about in a really long time. Yeah.
Well, it's because it's partially, it's. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I don't think our government in China are actually on that bad of terms. I really don't think that they are. And the reason why I say this is because it's all economics. Americans get probably, I don't know what the actual number is, and you guys can look it up if you want to, but the amount of imports that we get from China to economically satisfy our public, to me, is like 90%. Like,
It's got to be a huge number. I don't know what the number is, but
let's I mean clothes, toys, drugs, fucking everything that we needed from the pandemic was being made in China, which is why
Sure.
it took us so long to do anything. Like all of this stuff comes from China. There's no way in hell that just continues to happen without there being some kind of like, hey, we kind of have to posture for the sake of posturing, because otherwise the global there'll be a breakdown in like global power balance if we don't posture. We have to posture. But they just have an agreement that this is just how this shit's going to be. We're funneling so much money back to China that there's no way that money's not keeping China afloat, especially with as bad as their fucking economy is right now, especially with their what's that called? Their fucking housing market. Their fucking banks are bankrupt. Like the money that we send over to China has to be holding up China.
Sure.
Outside of the money that Russia's giving to China for oil, but China's fucking loaning Russia that money because they're fucking bankrupt. So I don't think it's a thing. I think it's it's all just fear mongering to control the public.
Right. There's a lot of codependence, obviously, in that relationship. There's really no way it could be disentangled to suddenly fight a war. But, I mean, it certainly has been the tack recently to go hard against China and say that, the U.S. is going to pivot to Asia. Before the Ukraine war and the Gaza slaughter.
You know how nobody's talking about fucking Taiwan anymore?
Yeah, that's for sure.
Actually, it was brought up in the debate once, but
Was it?
I don't remember that.
But I mean, all it was talked about was that they are the ones that are providing all of the chips.
Oh, yeah, Trump said that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah, you did mention Taiwan. That's a good point. Taiwan mentioned.
Taiwan mentioned for chips.
I mean, he's correct.
Sure. Yeah,
That was a true
it's
statement.
absurd. Yeah, it is absurd. Like,
Yeah, and she's like,
how
"What
much
did you-"
chips come from there?
And she gave him the face of like, what are you talking about? We don't make chips in America.
No.
I mean, we do make chips in America. It's just not anywhere to the degree that they make chips.
Yeah, it's
We design chips in America, right?
Mhm.
We do not make chips in America.
So let's end this off with predictions.
for election.
Hey, what's
For
the
how poll
prediction?
results will come out from this.
Both.
Okay, let's start with poll results. Wiggy.
Let's poll results. I think that poll results are going to overwhelmingly favor Harris, based on the debate. However, I will say that all of those polls are going to be brought to you by Pfizer.
I don't know. I feel like there's gonna be a third debate, right?
Maybe. I mean, I think Trump's going to be upset about this one personally, but
Gotcha. Well, okay. Assuming that there's going to be a third debate, I feel like Trump may have surprising rise in poll numbers from this. He's already on the way up. And like I think that people are going to basically say like, let's have that third debate and see how it shakes out. Like I think on both sides they're both going to want to talk one more time.
yeah. I think that the publications will say that Kamala won and that Trump was just repeating himself. I think that the polls will probably reflect what Jacob's saying, like maybe a slight uptick for Trump. But yeah, I hope we get another debate. I think that if there is a small uptick for Trump, that we're likely not to get another debate. Because he'll want to pull out and just say, "Oh, why would I do another debate when they treated me so poorly?" and really play that up, and you know, just keep himself where he's at. But
Sure.
yeah. So, but election Wiggy, what's your current prediction?
I think Harris wins, but I think Harris wins because of a very specific reason, and that is she played the right notes, and the note that she played was stability. And people in the world's in fucking chaos.
Sure.
And people are going to cling to whatever stability that they can find. You know, most people aren't going to want chaos in the midst of chaos. We got Trump not in the midst of chaos.
Sure.
We got it during, I mean, we were in forever wars, but relatively stable,
relative peace,
relative stability.
Right.
And
right.
so it's very chaotic right now, and I think they're going to want stability. It's also there's some percentage where it's more likely to keep an incumbent president when you're at war versus when you're not at war. And the public considers these wars that we're in, even though we don't have boots on the ground.
Sure.
And so
the public's right.
But it also
That's
depends. But it also, but the only caveat to that, and the way that I think Trump wins, is if people have decided that they're tired of the proxy wars and say, no, we're not going to vote. We're not going to vote the Democrats back in because we're tired of the proxy wars.
Jacob?
Yeah, I think it's like I think it's just the same thing I keep saying. Are people going to remember Trump and think that it's bad, or are people going to look at what's happening right now and think that it's bad and look for a change? Like one of those two options. And I think, increasingly the elections come down to like a small subset of people in one state. And I just happen to think that those people are more likely to support Kamala and think that things are okay right now. Like the people who are more likely to swing the election one way or the other, I think are likely to think that things are kind of okay. And I think that also another thing is just that I think that Trump only won the 2016 election because of Hillary's emails. Like, I think that ultimately was what swung the election. And I think that, are we in the exact...
Well, the embassy didn't help either.
What, you're talking about good, in Libya?
Mm-hmm.
Benghazi.
Yeah, sure.
Benghazi.
Yeah. So, okay, fine. But either way, I think that ultimately what was swung the election was the emails. And I think that, obviously we're not in the exact same circumstances, but I think that is probably what wins for Trump, is some crazy thing happening like that. Obviously they tried with Hunter Biden and that didn't work. And obviously Kamala is pretty distant from Hunter Biden, right? So that's good. But, I don't know what it will be. I don't know. I'm assuming it probably won't be emails again, but something could happen that just completely upsets it, right? And I think that, it's certainly not out of the question. I think it's probably easier for a party that's not in power to pull that side of stuff off sometimes, because they have people behind the scenes, obviously supporters within the government, and they can do covert stuff sometimes, and get away with it. Yeah, and that's probably where I stand on it.
I think Kamala will win, and I think it's for one reason, but I don't think it's the stability thing. I think it's just because she's a Democrat, and that's just the current flow of the political energy right now. Like, it just feels like it's swinging in that direction. Like, I think it's called waves for a reason. I think that we're in one. But I agree that, Trump has a chance if they can find. I think they got to smear her with something, and not necessarily smear. It could be like a legitimate thing they find out about her. But I agree,
Sure.
Jacob, that I think that is the. I'm sure that's all that they are focusing on right now is finding something like that. So
Look,
because I think if Biden would have stayed in, it would have ended up being Biden's. If it wasn't Hunter, which I think we had moved past Hunter, thankfully, I think it would have ended up being his files that he was keeping, the secret files or whatever, top secret.
they let him off on that. That was what
Yeah,
they
I
were
know.
talking
I
about
know
in the
they let him
debate.
off on it, but I just feel like they brought it up during the debate because like that would have been a primary talking point around this time if Biden was still in, for the reason Jacob said. Like that would be like their, I don't know, whatever. It doesn't matter that Trump had it too, whatever. But
Well, that was kind of Trump's play, was that he was really hoping Biden was going to stay in the race.
Sure.
Because he had his
Yeah.
talking points against Biden laid down, and Biden doesn't have enough energy to defend himself.
I think the only
So-
reason Biden dropped out is because he knew he would lose. Like, I mean, I think after the first
Mhm.
debate, it was pretty obvious. So at least we're not in that
Mhm.
situation, right? I mean, at least we're not in a
Right.
situation where one of the candidates is definitely going to lose. I mean, that's where we were, I think.
Yeah.
She is younger and healthier. That's
true.
definitely something she has going for her. And she's a woman. That is also a thing that she has going for her. I would
do you think-
expect.
God, sorry.
I was just gonna say, I do expect, because of how this debate went, for people to see a lot of Tulsi Gabbard on Fox News.
Good for Tulsi. I guess.
Just destroying, like trying to destroy and lock down Kamala, because because that's what she did. That's how Kamala got knocked out of the original race.
Sure.
Was Tulsi just fucking destroyed her on stage. So look out for that, because that's coming.
Yeah,
like-
JD Vance is dropped and Tulsi Gabbard is picked up as vice president. That's how they do it.
That could be a thing. I wouldn't
Actually, I don't
throw
think
it
it
out
could
there.
be a thing now that we're after the convention. But
Yeah, I mean, I think it's legally not a thing, but I mean, there's many things that aren't legally a thing that somehow get away with, anyways. I mean, JD Vance could die. You never know.
CIA did it.
yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us for Thoughts Expanded, the post-debate talk ourselves to sleep episode.
I hope you didn't watch the debate. I hope you just listened to our coverage.
Yeah, I hope so too. Yeah. All right, we'll catch you in the next one.
Bye.
Later.